9 years ago, everything was going well. We had everything that we needed. My wife and I were happy. Our 2-year-old son Marcus was happy and healthy too. The life was just perfect. We live in a small wooden house facing a river in the forest, but it's not the same house anymore. Not after that day. September 2013. It was 1 a.m. and raining. My lovely wife and Marcus were sleeping when I heard a knock at the door. At first, I was confused because no one lived near us and bears don't knock. I got up and approached the door. I hesitated. I hadn't seen anyone other than my family in years. I was looking through the peephole and there was a man standing there and violently knocking. I opened the door. He ran into my house without permission to do so. He started talking really fast. Something about the boy and the rule. I didn't understand a thing, so I told him to calm down. "You have to ignore it," he said. I was even more confused. Ignore what? The boy. He was talking incredibly loud and woke up my wife and son. "Who's this, John?" my wife said. "This is my friend." I tried not to alarm her. The stranger continued. "You don't read newspapers? You have no idea what's happening with this town?" I was confused as hell. I wanted to kick him out because he was apparently drunk. But then I remembered, and I was right. It was my friend. I couldn't recognize him because he grew a new hairstyle and beard, but oh boy, did he change. "Henry? What are you doing here? What's happening with this town?" I knew it. I knew it. You are completely cut off, my guy. But don't worry. I'll tell you everything you need to know. We sat down. He was completely wet. My wife handed him a blanket and some dry clothes while I was making him a cup of coffee. "You weren't joking. You really did completely isolate yourself," he said. "I guess. But can you tell me what's going on? You come to my house at 1 a.m. after all these years," I replied. "I would have called you if you had a phone. What kind of man doesn't have a phone?" "Get to the point," my wife interrupted. He took another sip of his coffee. "The faceless boy appears in people's houses in this town. We have no idea how, but we do know it won't hurt you. Unless you pay attention to him." "What are you talking about, Henry?" "I'm dead serious. You just have to ignore him and you'll be fine." I thought he was joking. I hoped he was joking. Instead of taking it seriously, I just said, "Nice one. If you want to make me regret my decision to isolate, you will have to try harder." This just made me laugh. "John, do you really think I'd go all the way to your house in the middle of nowhere just to tell you a joke?" I stopped fake laughing. I looked at my wife. She was looking at me. Marcus fell asleep again. It was quiet. I was thinking about the things he said. Then I looked at Henry. I wanted to make sure he wasn't joking, but no one could fake the look on his face. Not even the best actors. "What does it do?" I asked just to break the silence. If you ignore him, it does nothing. It just stands there. And if I don't?" I had to ask. "Then you..." Man, it's just not good, you know? "Please, tell us what happens if we don't ignore it," my wife yelled. "If you pay attention to him, you'll lose your face and won't be able to breathe. You'll also be completely blind and deaf while it's happening. It's like an additional layer of skin that's suffocating you. It's horrible," he answered. I was stunned. I wanted to know more, but I was too afraid to ask. I was shaking, and my wife was shocked. "If we do ignore it, when does it disappear?" My wife asked the same thing I wanted to ask. "It doesn't go away. You'll just have to get used to it." I wanted to wake up from this nightmare. The whole thing just seemed like the worst dream one can have. How do you know it's gonna happen to us? I asked. I don't, but it's happened to everyone from this town, Henry said. And even though you live in the forest, you're still in the town, John. Have you experienced it? I asked. No, I don't think it's gonna happen to anyone outside of the town. I moved out 2 years ago, but I live close enough to know all this and to come here. So, it's just a matter of time? I asked. We don't know for sure, but you should probably prepare for it. I didn't know what to do, or what to say. I closed my eyes. I tried not to think about it. I kept them closed for at least 30 seconds. And when I finally opened them, I saw Henry looking directly at me. He was breathing heavily. My wife was pale and frozen. I knew exactly what was going on. The faceless boy, it was here, inside the house, behind me. No one said anything. I was sweating. I wanted to turn around, but the look on Henry's face told me not to. I was just sitting there. I was horrified. What's the kid's name? Henry asked in a trembling voice. Marcus. I didn't even think about that. It was like an automated response. All I was thinking about was the thing behind me. Is he a good kid? He continued, ignoring the faceless boy. Yeah, he is. He's a good kid. I tried to remain calm. Okay. Why don't you show me your bathroom? I'm sure it looks great covered in wood. I got up and walked towards the bathroom with Henry walking behind me. I told my wife to come with us and to bring Marcus. I almost looked at the thing, but I made it to the bathroom without focusing on it. When we got inside, he closed and locked the bathroom door. He looked at me. He was exhausted. My wife was scared. I was scared. Fortunately, Marcus was sleeping the entire time. My wife was holding him in her arms. Do you think we're safe here? I stuttered. No. There's no way out, John. You have to ignore it. For the rest of your life. No, I can't ignore it. Call 911, I yelled. There's nothing they can do, John. I sat down on the wooden bathroom floor. I cried. My wife cried. Henry let out a sigh. I'm sorry, John, he said. I have to go now. Take care and don't forget to ignore. I wanted him to stay, but he had already left. He's waking up, she said. Looking at him made me smile. Marcus was our life. After an hour of thinking, we totally forgot about the door. Henry didn't close the door when he was leaving. It was open, wide enough for Marcus to crawl out. Marcus left the bathroom. I screamed his name and tried to save him. I ran outside and saw it. I saw the thing that was behind me. I saw the faceless boy. I didn't pay attention, and I tried to prevent Marcus from doing that. But again, too late. He froze and looked at the faceless boy. He paid attention. I was looking at his face. His eyes started to shrink. His mouth got sucked in. His nose was melting. He lost his face. I watched him suffocate. I watched my son die. I can't describe that feeling. I wanted to look at the faceless boy. I wanted to die, but I didn't want my wife to lose both of us. That's the only reason why I'm alive today. October 2021. It's 7 p.m. I'm writing this in the same house, in my bed, next to my wife. Life isn't perfect anymore. I don't have my son anymore, but I do have my wife, and she's the reason you're reading this. The faceless boy is still here. We've been ignoring him for 8 years. We did get used to it. It's there when I drink coffee, when I'm brushing my teeth, when I'm sleeping. My wife and I are the only survivors of this town's curse. Even Henry lost his face. Turns out, everyone who was in the town at the time got haunted. Henry actually sacrificed himself to save me and my wife. Thank you, Henry.